Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Lisa L. Campbell. I am back with your fifth and last lecture for week 5 of Introduction to HCPCS and CPT coding. Whew. So, we are in chapter 14, which is the female genital system. By now, you should have a flow going as it relates to the surgery section. I do hope that you have been bubbling and highlighting your CPT manual. If you haven't, shame on you. And maybe it's something that doesn't necessarily work for you. But let me just tell you that I personally believe that if you group together the different parts of the subsection, when you actually go over to look at a code, you're not so overwhelmed by what you see on that page because you've taken the time to group them together. Well, let's get into chapter 14, which is the female genital section. So, as usual, we're going to start with our objectives. You should be able to do all these things. Define the key terms, the abbreviations, know some of the basic anatomy, common procedures, apply the guidelines, right? You guys know the deal by now. So, the structures of the female genital system include the vulva, and vulva is actually an inclusive term used to describe the external genitalia of the female body part. Then you have the perineum. The perineum is a diamond shaped area of the skin between the upper area and the vaginal orifice and the anus. You have the vagina. You have all the rest of these, which I'm not going to get into because, at this point, if you literally don't know by now that you have to know the anatomy, you got to get caught up. All right. All right. So let's get back to business. So, after you go to the main structures of the system, it is important to know that there are lots of abbreviations that pertain to the female genital system. You're going to see them in medical records. So here are 4 slides of abbreviations. Definitely you want to take note of these. Again, I would not recommend writing all of this stuff in your book, your coding manual, because on the day of the exam, they're going to be looking through your manual. You don't want them to suspect that you, in some shape, form, or fashion, tried to cheat. All right. So the vulva, I already told you, is this all inclusive term to describe the external genitalia. It is also known as the pudendum. Pudendum. Okay. And these structures that make up the vulva are the mons pubis, the labia majora, the clitoris, and the labia minora. We also have other structures like the vestibule, the urinary meatus, the vaginal orifice, Bartholin's glands, and then the perineum. And oh, that's what I already just said. All right. So the perineum, I already told you, was this diamond shaped area. But then after that, you have the area that refers to an opening or a space, and it is the introitus. I don't know how to pronounce that. Oh well, can't pronounce them all, right? All right, so then let's talk about some procedures on the vulva. You are going to, of course, see incision and drainage. You're going to see vulvectomy codes. You're going to see hymenectomy codes. And hymen is a term that you may not be familiar with. The hymen is a membrane that covers the external opening of the vagina. And then, of course, you're going to have codes for repairs. Some terminology that you really need to be familiar with: colpo or vaginal, which means vagina; a colpotomy, colpocentesis. You've seen synthesis before, right? Guys, I don't know if you're noticing this. These words, the little word parts are repeating over and over and over again. Okay, so you have vaginectomy, you have colpocesis, you have colporrhaphy, you have colporrhexy. You saw rexy in another chapter, right? You have vagina defect repair, sling procedures, enteroceal repair, pariah procedure, and then fistula repair. And listen, the list just keeps going on and on and on. All right, so now procedures on the vulva, the perineum, and the intro. I gotta look up that word and hear somebody else say it. I know how to pronounce a lot of words in the medical language. I just don't know that one. All right, so we first have some codes for vulvectomy procedures and vulvectomy codes. There are these four definitions that are in your CPT manual right when these codes begin, and it is defining vulvectomy in terms of simple, radical, partial, and then complete. You want to make sure that you read those because it will help you with your code selection. Then you have the rest of the procedures here for the vagina: the otomy, the synthesis, the vaginectomy, the raphy, and the scopy. Everything has its place from a procedural perspective. All right, next up, you have the corpus uteri. And the corpus uteri is the area of structures that begins at the fundus of the uterine cavity and moves down to encompass the cervical canal or the external os. Procedures can be open or they can be scope type. Wait a minute, wait. By now, you know this, right? You know that a procedure is going to be open, which means open to the naked eye, or it's going to be with some type of scope, right? So that's something that literally should be ingrained into your mind. All right. So some open procedures are fulguration, conization, tralect, tralectomy. All right, let's continue. I don't want to be on here long. This is the last one. I already told you what the corpus uteri was, so we can just keep on moving. More terminology: endometrium, that's the innermost layer of the uterus; myomectomy, uterine fibroid tumor taken from the wall of the uterus; and then hysterectomy, that's when they start to drop your transmission. All right, so laparoscopy and hysteroscopy. Guys, okay, listen. You know that the diagnostic is included in the surgical. So, one of the things I think that I realized from teaching coding since 1997 is that there's this theme of how the manual is set up. There's this theme of how the procedures are performed. So the question is, are you catching on to the theme? All right, back to business. So, diagnostic included in surgery, you shouldn't bill that separately. A hysteroscope is a type of endoscope, and in this case, it's a fiber optic scope used for diagnostic or surgical procedures. Then we have our procedures on the ovary and the oviduct. And the ovaries are commonly referred to as the female gonads, and they function in producing eggs, which are released during ovulation. The ovaries also produce female hormones, estrogen, and progesterone. Then you have the fallopian tubes. There are two of them that open on one end in the uterus and the other end into the peritoneal cavity. All right, more terminology. Hystero, uterus; minnow, menstruation; ovo, ovum or egg, terms that you've heard before. Then we have ufero, ovary; overall, ovary; salpingo, fallopian tubes. Whoa. Then the last procedure here in this area is in vitro fertilization. This is a process in which a mature egg is exposed to sperm in a laboratory setting. The ova are then implanted into the uterus. The procedure codes that we have available report the retrieval of the egg, the placement of the fertilized egg into the uterus, the gamete intra fallopian transfer, also known as GIFT procedure, and then finally the zygote intra fallopian transfer, which is the ZIFT procedure. Well, listen, we made it to the end, and as usual, you know what the objectives are. I do hope that you are continuing to practice. Practice makes progress. Don't try to be a perfect coder. Even the government allows us a 5% error. And that's all I have to say. I am exhausted. Week number 5. 5 chapters in your CPT class, 3 chapters in your insurance class. We are definitely going to be talking more about the coding exams. So hold on to your seat for that. I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye now.